to Hosts Helping Hosts, where we connect with vacation home rental enthusiasts, share best practices, and promote the short-term rental community. My name is Jim, and today we have a great roundtable episode with Adeel, founder of STR Masters, and Kyle, CEO of the Fearless Investor Movement. Today we're going to talk about both of their journeys, how they got started, some of their passions and challenges they've seen in the industry, and some helpful tidbits for hosts like yourself to navigate difficult seasons like this COVID crisis. We are Hosts Helping Hosts. Let's get started. For hopping on, I'm here with two experts in the field, Adeel and Fearless Kyle, and we're just here to talk shop here today and to kind of learn more about Adeel and Kyle specifically and kind of their journey up to this point, and also just kind of some tips for hosts out there who are trying to navigate this COVID-19 climate and kind of our outlook for the remainder of the year to come. So, Kyle, we'll start with you. Just tell us a little bit about your background. Tell us about some of the different projects you're involved in, and kind of some of your favorite things about this STR sandbox.
Okay, how long do we have?
Yeah, right.
Well, long story short, I started Airbnb back in 2015 in Scottsdale, Arizona, just doing it as a house hacking method, renting a room out of my place. And that was awesome. I mean, for basically 4 strong years because of that and a mixture of roommates, I just never had to pay for a mortgage. And even every once in a while was cash flowing a little bit, which was really cool. But honestly, that was all I ever saw with Airbnb because that was how it was introduced to me. And then one day I just got curious. I'm like, I'm going to be out of town this weekend. I might as well just try putting my whole house on there. And I put some absurd number out there. And by the way, I had moved back to Fresno, California, which is where I'm at now, my hometown. And I was like, Fresno won't get anything compared to Scottsdale, Arizona. It's, no one wants to come here. And got booked out all 3 days while I was gone. And I made $450 in a weekend, which was 3 times as much as what I was making before. And I was like, it just was one of those light bulb moments of what have I been missing out on? And so started educating myself, bought a course, learned about rental arbitrage, learned about management. And I still wasn't quite sold, but I was determined to see if this thing was really gonna do as well as I was hearing. You hear $1,000 of cash flow, $2,000 of cash flow, and you're a little bit skeptical, especially because all I had ever done was a room out of my house. So I was just like, you know what, I'm gonna go get a small little 1-bedroom, 1-bath arbitrage and see if this thing works. And it did. Within the first 30 days, we had our first 3 months booked. And I was cash flowing in this small little 1-bedroom, 1-bath, $600 to $800 a month. And so that was enough proof of concept for me to be I'm selling my home, I'm moving in with my parents, and I'm buying 2 or 3 rentals with the money that I got from the sale of my home. And I did that, and I just kept on pushing with arbitrage. Started to learn about the management side because, I started a podcast and YouTube channel talking about this along with other real estate investments that I do. And people just started coming to me for management. So now basically fast forward, long story short, I had this aha moment back in early 2019 and then got my first arbitrage property in May of 2019. And now today we have 11 listings. So it's been about 9 months. We have 11 listings. And even during the midst of all the craziness last month, we still had our largest grossing month of over 25,000. And even now, right now, I did a lot of things to transition and to adjust with the times. And I mean, the ones that we've kept on Airbnb right now we're 99% booked in April, which is crazy. I attribute a lot of that to our market, but the thing I love about it, it's honestly the scalability. I'm a systems guy. I love systems. So that's one of the things I love about this business. And, up until this COVID-19 stuff, even with 11 listings, I really was only putting in 1 to 2 hours a week of management because I just have really great teammates that are doing that stuff for me, which allows me to go find new opportunities, new listings, make new partnerships, raise more money, the stuff that I should be focusing on. And then of course the cash flow. I mean, it's when you're in an industry of real estate investing and you hear people bragging about $200 or $300 of cash flow, I'm just kind of that doesn't sound sexy to me, but $1,000 a month sounds really good. So, it's definitely like opened up possibilities in my life to where I'm looking now to like just go travel the world and take a little bit more time off when all this stuff is done, because I have that kind of freedom. So love this industry.
Oh, that's fantastic. And then you've also, at what point did you, in addition to hosting, have you always been interested in YouTube marketing and things of that nature as a podcast? Or because, I mean, I actually found you, Kyle, when the Airbnb president had his first kind of public talk, or his info session, like after the COVID-19 response. And then actually when I typed that into YouTube, your name came up right at the top. Your response to his video is actually what got me hooked on your content right off the bat. I thought that was pretty impressive that like yours came up right up there. That's awesome.
So I'm doing something right then, I guess. Yeah, no, my background, I was right out of college. I was a sports anchor for a local TV station in Colorado. And so when I got out of that industry, I knew that no matter what I would do moving forward, I would love to be able to bring that passion of, basically TV or video and continuing to teach. I liked that industry, but I didn't like that I wasn't really making an impact on anyone. Whereas like with YouTube and a podcast, you can help a lot of people just by sharing information. And so that's the goal, is just to bring information. I just got another viral video about the whole Grant Cardone thing that's going on. And so one of the things that I just, really want people to understand is like, what the truth is out there about things, what the reality is about things. And there's so many people, unfortunately, right now in the Airbnb space that, are just writing it off because of things that they're seeing on Facebook groups, because of things that they're hearing about, that it's just a lot of talk. And you have no idea if it has anything to do with, maybe it's that person's market, maybe it's that person's marketing strategy, maybe it's the fact that person that you heard it from doesn't really know the tricks and the trades like what a lot of educated hosts do in order to not only survive during these times, but thrive. And so that's kind of the goal right now, is just to bring awareness to people.
That's fantastic. That's really what it's about, is just kind of making sure that people know that, hey, that it's not all doom and gloom out there. There's a lot of fighters out there and people who are in the business. They're still very bullish on it and are excited about it. And Adeel, tell us more about you. How'd you get involved in this, and a little bit about your background and some of your favorite things about your journey so far.
Yeah, so my story is actually very similar to Kyle's, and I think that's a lot of actually short-term rental operators out there. I've been mainly an investor as well into real estate. I've been in real estate for the past 10, 11 years, and what Kyle said actually hit home, because everybody's always talking about trying to generate passive cash flow from real estate, and that was my go-to as well. But short-term rentals actually just take you into a whole new ballpark, just because of how profitable they can be. So I purchased my first investment as a short-term rental in the right location and all of that in 2016, and quickly just saw how lucrative it could be. Now, obviously, you always have limited funds and you can't go out there and purchase 10, 15, 20, 50 properties. But the beauty of this business was that it was indeed scalable, whether you're using the rental arbitrage or the hosting model. So me as well, I'm a big systems guy. So we just became super obsessed with trying to optimize and make it as much of an automated business while still keeping that personal touch, because Airbnb and short-term rentals is more about personal rather than operating like a hotel. So after maybe about 6 to 8 months, we figured out a lot of the tweaks and we started growing. So we first started with rental arbitrage. And again, as we started growing, we got to 10, 12 properties. It became more people reaching out to us and wanting us to manage their property. So that's how we got into the property management as well. And our portfolio is mixed of both of those. We have over 30 units today. And it's just overall a very, very cool business, because you can actually set it up as a business if you have the right systems, people, and tools in place. I've been fortunate enough to be able to travel for the past year and a half. I'm usually only in Canada for about 4 months, and the rest of the time you're able to just work maybe under an hour a day or so, and your systems are basically just working for yourself. So basically a lot of my friends would reach out to me and stuff like that. So I initially started off with a small group trying to create other entrepreneurs, and I just really love the aspect of teaching others and being able to pass on the knowledge to others. So I realized, exactly like Kyle's saying, a lot of hosts are making some mistakes here and there, and usually not everybody takes the time to tweak and figure out exactly what it is to take yourself out and put your entrepreneur hat and actually think like a business owner. So we basically started a little bit of an education, started from a group of friends or small circle and started broadening that. So that's how we basically got started in the education side of it. And just recently, more so, I think, going back to March 11th, we got hit just like everybody else did, literally felt like with a truck, right? We had cancellations in triple digits, and you automatically go into reactive mode because you saw about 100K plus worth of bookings just coming off your platform or just coming off your books, and you just get really shook. But what I quickly realized was whoever becomes proactive right after being reactive is who's going to take over whatever market share is left. One of the things that we always try to focus on is trying to understand who your guest is. And I think it was a pivotal moment to understand who your guest is that's traveling, because the leisure side or the regular business traveler is obviously not traveling. So it was important to note that, fine, understood, this thing happened, it's real, what now? Do you give up? And I think a lot of people got caught up in that you get depressed, you get sad, and you just lose all motivation. So I think it was just important for us to pivot, understand, try to cut costs where we could, and try to see who is it that's still traveling. And that's really something that I try to tell everybody, that your service is still required. There's a lot of medical travelers that require spaces right now. There's a lot of we see a lot of students that are misplaced because the colleges and universities are closed. So the market shifted, but there's still a different type of guest that's actually looking for a space. And for the past month, that's what we basically try to focus on. And similar to Kyle, we actually saw very high occupancy numbers because the duration of the stay has changed. Rather than a regular 3 to 7 day stay, you now see anywhere between a 14 to 30 to 60 day stay. So obviously the dollar that you're actually going to be charging, because there's a shift in supply and demand change, but overall there's still a necessity for it in the market.
Exactly. And that's another thing I want to get conversational about here today with both of you is, so as you were touching on Adeel, so how are you seeing similar things? So we're talking business travel. How has it been for both of you? I'm sure it's been similar for all three of us. So when all this happened mid-March, after we kind of like let the panic attack cycle through us and so on and so forth, are we basically looking at what are some different solutions or kind of STR hacks that you kind of suggest to host, whether they're doing it full-time, whether this is a part-time thing, or whether they're kind of on the fence about getting involved in it or staying involved in it? What are some different tools that I know you both have touched on a little bit as far as how we're kind of navigating these waters and maybe some expectations? And this doesn't have to just be one person, just talking, we can just kind of be a conversation with it a little bit, but what are some different little STR hacks that you guys are finding? What's working, what's not working?
Yeah, no, Adeel was right on, and it's really, I had Jay Massey on my show. If you guys aren't familiar with Jay, he's big time in the Airbnb YouTube space, but he and I have a very similar mindset. He just put it into really good words. We don't own an Airbnb business, we own a short-term rentals business. And the people who think they own an Airbnb business are the ones that, just like what Adeel was saying, got reactive. And you start seeing all the Facebook groups, I'm mad at Airbnb. Why is this being done to us? Why don't we have an option on what to do? And yeah, it sucks. And I agree that it really did suck that we didn't have some sort of communication. It was just kind of like, hey, boom, you are going to give the guests back their entire thing, even though it's not your fault, which I'm fine with. But at the same time, the people who just got mad and shut down their business owned an Airbnb business. They didn't own a short-term rentals business. And so I just believe in surrounding myself with higher level thinkers you guys, people like Jay Massey, people like my friend Alan Quavas. These guys are active on Facebook groups and active in the community and will take my phone call or text or email and they'll give me advice. And one of the things that I started to see is, we were losing a ton, but we were also getting those rebooked at a lower rate. But my proactive mind and advice from Alan was, hey, what if there's a travel ban and now you're not able to get any of your stuff? And I don't want to rely on a forbearance. I don't want to rely on the government to just allow me to stop paying. So I just went into the mode of doing month-to-month rentals with a month-to-month leases and saying, you know what, if I'm not going to make $1,000, at least I'm still making $300 to $500. Now that comes with a whole nother set of risks. We're dealing with one of those right now, especially in California. Luckily, we were able to handle it. But, you know, at the end of the day, even that risk, even that poor tenant that's putting a lot of stress on me right now was something that I knew, like, hey, if I can just survive right now, if I can just get through this, get through the weird times, then I can thrive on the other side of this. And we still kept Airbnbs or listings on Airbnb just to see how the market was responding. So we kept 3 of our 11 on Airbnb. And like I said, we only had of the 100 and actually it was 4. Of the 120 days that could have been booked in April, 119 were booked on Airbnb. And it was like, what just happened? You know? And so like, just like one of the hacks that we are doing outside of month-to-month leases is the same thing that I do really with all of my calendars. I think a lot of it just comes down to calendar management. So obviously there's a lot of things you can do for marketing, a lot of things you can do for like being COVID-19 friendly, all that kind of stuff. But my big calendar hack right now is just everything that's a week out is a 14-day minimum, and everything that's the week of is a 1-night minimum. So I'm trying to get those long-term stays ahead of time. And then when I'm in the week of, I just want to fill in the gaps. And that seems to have been working out pretty well.
Adeel, are you finding similar strategies working for you folks as well?
Yeah, so what I'd say is, you know, some places are more fortunate where it's the rules are a little more lenient and there's still more movement. So one of the things that I started doing was I noticed that we did not pay attention to the countries, unfortunately, that were worse off than us. We didn't pay attention to China. We didn't pay attention to Italy in time, because if had we done that, we would have known exactly what's coming our way. So as soon as I picked up on that trend, I said, okay, what's happening there right now is exactly what I'm going to expect to happen here in a week or 2 weeks. So by being a little proactive in that manner, I said, okay, even though right now there's a little bit of movement, domestic travel still happening, we also had the international border with the US open in Canada in the beginning. And I quickly realized that that's not going to be the case, and things were changing very quickly. So it was, you had basically no time to complain. You had to be quickly proactive enough to shift gears and try to get as highly occupied, because every passing day, that could become stricter. That's basically the approach that we took. So again, we did some calendar management, obviously, but even before doing so, I noticed you started getting very last minute bookings. So if you're expecting to be booked out 30 to 60 days in advance, that's not the case. Very last minute bookings, and because you want to avoid those parties, you have to set some type of minimum. You want to set a 3, 5, 7 day minimum, but majority of the people that were sending inquiries was still 14 days, because a lot of people were coming for self-isolation. That was a very big trend to capture for short-term rental units, or 30-day longer stays. That's the shift that we made. And some of the tricks that worked for us was, again, we had to stop complaining about, okay, what Airbnb is doing, or .com or HomeAway or any of the other OTAs are doing. You were still getting inquiries from those if your price was right, because all of a sudden there was a lot more supply on the market. But you had to, now being a landlord previously, because I'm an investor, how did we get people to book our units back in the day for long-term rentals? You would go to your regular marketplaces. You would go to Craigslist. We have Kijiji. There's Facebook groups where people are always looking for local longer-term rentals. You have Facebook Marketplace. All of a sudden, these things become your go-to, because people are still looking. Someone's transitioning. Someone just sold their house and needs to move in. And that's where you're filling the gap. So we quickly tried to adapt to that. We tested everything. We tried Facebook ads. We tried Google ads. I think right now, one of the things that people are realizing, exactly as Kyle said, you're not an Airbnb business, you're a short-term rental business. People got so used to just putting a listing, throwing a couple pictures, and making great dollars that we lost that. And now it's the time to go back to the basics and actually set up a profitable business, so that you don't have one point of failure. If you're only on one OTA, for example, that's your one point of failure. If they choose to tomorrow cancel your listing for any purpose, that's your one point of failure. So I think a lot of people are going to go back and diversify across all these different strategies. That's one of the things that we're always teaching, that don't try to keep that one point of failure, because at the end, the onus is on you. It's your business, and you're you're the one who's in the driving seat. You're the one who's got to steer it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Those are great points, and really just kind of shifting that mindset from being an Airbnb business to a short-term rental business. I feel like it's so crucial for a lot of hosts out there. And one question I want to lob to both of you guys is I've been getting a couple questions from some different hosts here locally. Is they may not be as familiar with the industry as either you, Adeel, or you, Kyle, but maybe they want to start taking those next steps of getting off some of the major OTAs like a HomeAway or an Airbnb. Maybe they're dabbling with like a Facebook marketplace, but they're getting overwhelmed by people who want to really want to be like, hey, I want to sign a 6 to 12 month lease like right now. How are you guys kind of finding those? Is it luck of the draw, those 3 to 6 week stays, or are you just telling people like, hey, we're just going to take it month by month? Or what are some different ways you're finding? Because obviously you don't want to take your product and give it on the discount for 6 to 12 months, because who knows what the next 2 to 3 months are going to look like. So are you just kind of taking it like a cautious approach, like, hey, planning for the worst but hoping we get back to some normalcy soon with all this fluidity going on? And how do you kind of find that sweet spot, that medium between, hey, I want to get some occupancy, but I don't want to mortgage all of these potential future revenue for quarter 3 and quarter 4?
Yeah. To answer that question, I think, well, first of all, our most successful platform was Craigslist. And then Facebook Marketplace was a very close second. We tried Roomies, we tried Furnish Finders, didn't have a whole lot of success there. But my big thing is just transparency and telling people what the plan is. And I told every single person, hey, these are going to be 30-day, month-to-month leases. We're going to give you a 30-day notice if, we're ready to turn it back to Airbnb. But just so you know, these have been Airbnbs for their entirety. And we are just trying to weather a storm right now, trying to help out more people locally. Because really, the month-to-month leases are mainly for the local people. I don't know if that's what you've been experiencing too, but it's mainly been the people here in town. And so, we tell them, hey, listen, we know you're in town or you need a place for 6 months. We can't promise you 6 months, but we can promise you we'll give you a 30-day notice as long as you don't, break the lease. And by doing that, right now we've got someone that's actually ready to, they don't want to move out, but, we're ready to kind of move them out because of the fact that they want to pay less next month. And, now we're seeing that everything's going well with Airbnb. So we just gave them their options and said, hey, listen, you can go ahead and give us your 30-day notice. We can give you a 30-day notice, or you can pay this amount and stay here. And that's really what it's come down to. So understanding, having your guests understand exactly what your expectation is, making sure you're on the same planes, and putting it in the lease if you are doing month to month off of Airbnb. Which, I know a lot of people are scared about taking it off of Airbnb because now your host guarantee is gone and all that stuff. But there are ways to protect yourself, and especially a security deposit is a must if you're going to do that.
Adeel, are you finding similar tactics working for you guys as you're trying to?
Yeah. So take a step back from that. Now, I think one of the things that we realized under the current market scenario, I think the larger a manager you were, the harder you were hit, right? Because it's different if you have one unit that you need to get occupied versus if you have 100 units. So it hit everybody differently, yet the same. One of the things I think was important to do, especially if they're not your own properties, if you're an owner, that's fine, you can make the last call. If you are managing someone else's property or you're doing rental arbitrage, I think it's very important to have that conversation with whoever's on the other side as well. Because you don't necessarily want to put a long-term guest in there and have them squat and it not even be your place. Now you're actually going back and forth between your landlord and your guests. So it was very important to first have that conversation. And two things would come of it. A lot of people, we decided we're going to have a conversation with all our landlords, all our property owners. And one thing that came of it, some of them were actually very understanding. Some of them said, listen, there's a lot of, right now, people that are actually misplaced. Someone had a friend as a nurse, or someone said, listen, if you want to offer my space to a doctor or something in this time frame, I'm okay to even give a discount on that. I can try to take the mortgage deferral or forbearance, whatever it have you, because I understand your situation. So it was good to understand where your partner is in this scenario so that then you can expect, okay, who you want to put in your space. Second thing that was important to understand was, what is your bottom dollar cost? A lot of people will realize probably that some of the money that you're spending back in the day was really unnecessary. Just because you were making more, you were spending more. So it was important to probably cut some costs and realize, okay, that before, if this property was costing me $2,000, now it's going to cost me $1,800. I can get someone in there $2,000 and actually be profitable. Whereas in the past, it would have just met your bottom dollar. So doing those two things is first setting your ground as to who you want in there, what price point, and how long you want them. The stance that we took was, I knew that the first 2 to 3 months are probably going to be the hardest thing. Panic and everything is widespread. So if I can get through my first 2 to 3 months, things are only going to get easier from there on. So that's the approach that we took, and we tried to get usually 30, 60 days max. I think we got was maybe a 75-day booking, and we didn't go for any longer. One of the things that was essential now, because you are playing with the risk of having squatters, is you have to have a very good email. So we quickly got that done. We already had one that we would previously use for any longer durations, but we ran that by a lawyer again, made sure that it's not missing anything, because you do at the end of the day run into the risk of. And last but not least, in most cases previously, you would not actually jump on the phone with your Airbnb guest and have that conversation every single time. However, if anybody was coming for a longer duration, for 30 days plus or 28 days plus is what a long-term rental is in Toronto, we decided that we're actually going to have a one-on-one conversation. We're going to ask for ID. We're going to get these documents signed just so that we don't run the risk of, and actually ask, what is the purpose of travel? Why are you coming? Basically just vet them to make sure that you're not running into some of those problems that so many other hosts are here.
Excellent. I mean, those are so many good nuggets, and I can't really thank both of you guys enough for hopping on here today. And I guess the last question that I would ask both of you, well, first of all, tell people out there like how they can look up your YouTube channels, your podcasts, your management consulting services, and kind of maybe leave us with a couple, some tidbits on as far as what is your outlook for, when all this does kind of get past us, and it will, what's your kind of some lasting kind of thoughts and impressions about like what the future looks for us, and our, how bullish are you on the STR market that we're living in?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Fearless Kyle. And we put out a course, of Survive and Thrive Airbnb COVID-19 course. It's absolutely free. And it's something that in 30 to 45 minutes, it kind of just wraps up everything that we talked about, but puts it into an actionable way to do it. So I really suggest just going and checking that out. If you want to check out our YouTube channel and our podcast, all you got to do is just go to fearlesskyle.com. It'll direct you right there. The name of the Instagram, I keep saying Instagram, the name of the podcast and the YouTube channel is actually The Fearless Investor. But yeah, I mean, honestly, like, just to leave you with some last thoughts here, I think, and I really believe this is the case. I think that if you are wondering, is now a good time to either grow or start an Airbnb business, you really need to do some homework before just assuming what the answer is, because what I'm seeing is there's a lot of people right now that are having a difficulty with getting long-term tenants because no one wants to move right now. No one wants to get out of their current situation. There's very few people that, if they were in the process of moving, most of them stopped and said, hey, let's figure this thing out after all this is done. And so that leaves you with landlords that are stuck, that are having to go through forbearance or having to foot the bill of a vacant place. And that provides us with a very good opportunity to come in and be someone that helps these landlords and provides them with a solution of either managing for them and co-hosting, or arbitraging it and paying them a set rent. And at the same time, you got to do your homework though and make sure that if you're going to provide that solution, is it going to be profitable and a good business in your market as well? I think that's the biggest thing right now. It's just like, don't just take something at its face value. Make sure you are actually doing the evaluation of your market, your strategy. Will it work for you if you were to implement that today?
Excellent takeaways. Adeel, how about you?
So first of all, you can find us on Facebook, or our website is STR Masters. That's STR Masters, and a Facebook group community just for hosts, just trying to help each other out through this rough time, is Airbnb Masters. You can also find us on YouTube, just trying to create content and just get everybody kind of educated on what's going on, at least what my expertise and where I see things going. You can find us on YouTube at the Traveling Host. Where I see things going is, just like Kyle said, I think there will be an opportunity. What happened was Airbnb, just like a lot of other markets right now, they came into a, it was anybody and everybody into the market space, which is making it highly competitive. So it's going to be a bit of a market shift, in my opinion. A lot of the weaker hands may leave, and which will create an opportunity for whoever's able to keep their doors open, or someone new to actually enter the market. Just like Kyle said, I completely agree with that, that you always have to think about, when partnering up with a landlord, as this, that you're actually solving an issue for them, because landlords always have an issue. They want a good tenant in there. And if you can be that good tenant, especially in today's market, you can probably get very good market rents, probably below market rents than what you would have found just 2 to 3 months ago. On the flip side, yes, it's a bit of a leverage model, and there is a cost to it. And right now, times are uncertain. So if you're a little uncomfortable with getting started or getting your feet wet in that, you can always go the co-host model, which is, if someone's property is just sitting idle, it's already furnished, and you're bringing in your area of expertise and able to get them XYZ amount of dollars, it's probably better than what they're receiving right now. So there's definitely plenty of opportunity in the market. And I think for the future trends is, travel will not look the same in the short term, but there's going to be a lot of pent-up demand for when things get back to the new normal, whatever that may be. Now, if let's say a vaccine comes out from a year from now, there's going to be a lot of pent-up demand that people are going to want to get out and travel. There may not be as much supply in the market, however, just because a lot of people are actually closing doors right now. So whoever does have their doors open will probably be able to make a higher dollar average per night. So that's how I see it. And in the midterm, I think there will be a lot more local travel before international travel starts. So just knowing who's traveling, where to find them, how to market them will be absolutely essential.
I mean, you guys hit the nails right on the head here, and so many great takeaways and words of encouragement for people out there. And I just can't thank you guys enough for hopping on today and having to talk about kind of as we're navigating this crisis. There's a lot of different compass points, and you guys have both given us a lot of great tidbits as far as how to guide a lot of these hosts through that. And so I thank you both a lot for coming on, and hopefully we all can kind of stay in touch through this.
Awesome.
Thank you very much for having us. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much again for joining us today on Hosts Helping Hosts. If you ever have any topics you'd like us to cover, questions about managing your rentals, finding cleaners, what online booking platforms you should be on, or maybe you need help finding and plugging in with your local short-term rental meetups in your community, whatever it is, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. Feel free to connect and chat with us anytime on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, or email. Also, be sure to join the great discussions being held in our Hosts Helping Hosts Facebook group community to meet other hosts just like yourself. We would love to hear from you. We hope you have a great rest of the day, and please never forget the wise words of the great John Wooden: make each day a masterpiece, help others. See you next time.